Good morning. Welcome into Five Clubs. Great to have you with us. We are live. It's good to be here. It's December. That is hard to believe. Here we are, Golf Channel and also Sirius XM PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92. I'm Gary Williams, and as you know, every day, whenever we're here, and even if we're on the road, Century is our presenting sponsor. When it comes to business insurance, that is their specialty. Every business needs it. Evaluate yours with them. They will be right by you. Golf Pride, when it comes to grips and options and materials, through the bag, nobody can touch Golf Pride. That is why they're trusted by the most players, regardless of level, around the world. And of course, Peter Millar, it's the holiday season when it comes to getting anything you need wherever your life takes you, whether it's watching a kid on a soccer field, playing golf, being in a boardroom, it doesn't matter. Peter Millar has got you covered. Go to petermillar.com to get all your apparel needs. It is December 1st. That's hard to believe. But there's actually one of the great events in the history of elite men's professional golf that'll be contested this week. We'll talk about that. And then it'll be story time with Gary a little bit later on as it relates to the Australian Open. Rory in the field. Plus, we'll talk about the skins game in a moment. And also, we're going to be joined here in less than 15 minutes by a Masters champion, Mike Weir. He will captain the international side at the Skechers World Champions Cup, which is coming up. We had Jim Furyk to talk about that, many other items. So Mike Weir, the 2003 Masters champion, here in a little bit. Hope everybody had a fantastic holiday weekend. I'll do a little skins recap as well. But the best thing that I saw over the last week in golf, and I thank my buddy Stu Lansing for tipping me off on this day that they had. And think about it, it got kind of brisk and chilly, even down here in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I would imagine in Toronto last week, might have been a little chilly. That did not prevent 5 men from going out and playing 9 holes. And you're like, so what? 5 ball, 9 guys, who cares? You should care. This is the essence of what the game can give us. You see those scores and you're going, yeah, that's pretty nice. 9 holes, shorter course. They got a Harry Colt at Toronto Golf Club. Look at the scores, 43, 41, 37, 36, 42. Pretty good, but you're going, what are those numbers below them? Is that their total score? That's their ages. Their ages. Mr. Overberry, Mr. Eason, Mr. Foy, Mr. Mockler, and Mr. Zacharias. They shot scores of 40, 43, 41, 37, and 36. Their ages are 89, 95, 94, 92, and 84. That's an average age of 90.8. A total accumulative time on this earth for that fivesome playing at Toronto Golf Club, 454 years. That's great. That is why golf allows us to go out there and go, you know what, I wasn't very good today, but let's do it again tomorrow. And I have no idea what Mr. Foy and Mr. Overby and Mr. Zacharias had after their round. Who knows? Little bitters? I don't know. They probably seem like they're Scotchmen. Who knows? Whatever it is that they sat around and shared as a libation after that 9 holes. And that's not the last time they're going to play golf. That was just the last time they played golf. That's a glorious thing. So thank you, Stu, for sending that on to me, tipping me off. Toronto Golf Club, never been there. Heard it is a delightful, charming, historic place with a Harry Colt big course. And so that is where we start. But let me talk a little bit about we had Xander Schauffele on the show last week, and that was in advance of the skins game. And Xander provided us with one of the great big check tops anything that Happy Gilmore ever did by winning a big check and throw it in the back seat of his car. I hope that Xander Schauffele somehow, some way finds a place for that big cardboard check that he was cut. 0.0. He goes Blutarski in the skins game. Started with $1 million, ended with nothing. And that was a nice little element. And it was not surprising that Xander Schauffele was delightful and engaging and effervescent out there at Panther National. Let me say this. I haven't been to Panther National. I don't know that I would want a steady diet of Panther National. It might break me. 30-mile-an-hour winds. You think every time you look down at the ball, I could lose this one. I could rinse the next shot and the next one. It reminded me a little bit of a golf course a little bit, I believe, north of there. I'm thinking in proximity, where I didn't frequent a lot when I lived down there in South Florida for a couple winters. Old Marsh. Old Marsh is one of the most penal examinations of the game of golf I've ever seen. Well, guess what? I think it has competition now because Panther National is unforgiving. Couple things that I like very much. I like the bank. I like the fact that those guys started with $1 million each and then it depleted based on skins won by other players. And yes, it's nice that Keegan Bradley had a nice day and he won the most money. And Shane Lowry finished third, and then it was Tommy Fleetwood, and then it was Keegan Bradley. I also think that those four guys did what is not easy. It's not hard. Not easy to hold an audience with banter and chatter. And look, you have somebody who's one of the great facilitators of kind of byplay and chatter and conversation on a golf course, and Colt knows. So he's a great facilitator to those things. I like the presence of Peter Jacobsen. Peter rekindles kind of what this thing was when it was born in 1983, and then it was kind of shelved in 2008. And I like that connection to a time when the skins game was a standalone event on Thanksgiving weekend, and they played 9, and then they played 9, which gets me to an observation which I think it doesn't matter who the players are, and who knows, if you had Rory and Scheffler, and you could add Keegan Bradley and Xander Schauffele, whoever the four were, the fact is 4 hours is a long time. It's a long time for anybody in a live environment to be able to say, you know what, this is still as interesting as it was an hour ago. Not their fault. 4 balls in the air, a lot of time between. A couple things that I again, these are not necessarily recommendations, but kind of in a roundabout way, they kind of are. I think 18 holes is a haul. Because back in the day, before we could find out when things were over, even before they were over with the internet, we had to rely on, hey, we know it's tape, but who knows? We don't know who won, whether it was Jack or Arnie or Nicholas or Trevino. So that is something you can't do anymore. You can't put something on there that is pre-recorded. You just can't. So it's got to be live. I think 18's too much. I'd make it 12, and I'd make it 3 hours. And make what is another thing that I think is challenging, and it's something that I don't think can in any way be resolved. Because back in 1983, when the skins game was contested, and it was kind of the advent and the creation of what became what was known as the silly season in professional golf. You had a mixed team event, the J.C. Penney, and you had a skills challenge, and you had the Wendy 3 Tour. But the skins game was kind of the bellwether, it was the bell cow. It was the anchor event, which had the biggest names, starting with the 4 aforementioned Lee, Arnie, Jack, and Gary. And the fact is that when those guys went out and played in the skins game, when they had carryovers, and Arnold Palmer was putting for $175,000, that's more than he made in any season in his career. And it's not like the brand Arnold Palmer didn't, provide him with millions of dollars off the golf course, but it seemed to feel like it had gravity to it. These guys wrapping in a putt for $550,000, that's over. We've lost the weightiness of the monetary denomination associated with each hole. So how do you make it to where you feel like there's something on the line? You can't do it really with money, but here's the thing. If there's not enough, like $4 million for four guys for 4 hours of work, that's the marketplace we find ourselves in, and I don't begrudge any of them. It's the way it is. So I would shorten it in time, shorten it in holes, and maybe make it to where you find yourself in a position where you can add an element where inside holes you could find yourself really not just rooting for somebody else to have the hole, but suddenly you could team up. And the guy who produced it, ironically, and this is an inside joke and I'm not going to get into the details of it, some type of wolf element. Jeff Newbarth, if you're watching or listening, you tried wolf one time on Morning Drive, didn't quite get off the ground. And I'm not talking about wolf on the golf course. I'm talking about the way that we ended our show. So I think overall, it's encouraging. I think it'll be back. I like the fact that Chad Mumm and their production team did not try to new up and make this about today. It's nostalgic. And even if you never saw the Skins game, it's kind of like if you never saw Shell's Wonderful World of Golf when it was aired for the first time, and you went back and you watched Littler and Byron Nelson at Pine Valley. Connect the past. And Chad and his team did that. They did it all the way down to the patches that they were wearing, as he was wearing, Natalie Cladd announcing the players on the first tee, but also with the branding on the flags. That was cool. And I appreciated that, and I'm glad they did it, and I'm glad it's back. And I hope maybe you go somewhere else. That's the last thing as well, is that when we saw the Skins game back in the day, we didn't have a chance with all these, quote, game-chasing, content-creating people to be able to see great drone footage and aerials of golf courses unfamiliar to us. There are very few places now today that are unfamiliar. We'd like to tap into them, as we did with our pilot of America's Guest at Caprock Ranch. You can't take it there. It's a little chilly out there in Valentine, Nebraska this time of the year. That's the other thing. Find those places. If those new places can't necessarily be places where you can hold championship events, find them for something like a Skins game and contest that event there. And also, most importantly, they were able to start a sports day that was in a standalone position. Do not change the time. Get out of the way of what the rest of the buffet of sports provided us on that Black Friday, starting with Eagles and Bears, and then all the way through the day with college football, and if you were watching prime NBA basketball at night. One last note from over the weekend, because I'm going to talk about the Australian Open, but the Australian PGA was contested this past week. And look, Australia is a great sporting nation, and this is a time of the year where they have their biggest events, and for many, many years, decades it feels like, a lot of the best players would not go across from this part of the world to go over there and play in it, but occasionally a top player will. And there were a lot of LIV players, many of whom have high profiles. David Puig, not one of them yet, but David Puig is 23. And there is no doubt that David Puig has the ability to be among the best players in the world. And he just won at 23 the biggest event in his young career. And he's going to try to balance time between playing and being obligated to all the LIV events with playing the DP World Tour events. And what will be interesting as it relates to him, and most importantly, it's him winning the event, is David Puig is absolutely good enough, talent-wise, got to be refined, got to produce, got to be in the conversation among a European Ryder Cup talent pool that's deeper than it's ever been. He could be at Adair Manor, but can he be? Because as we go into 2026, there are a couple things that are front and center in terms of where is resolution when it comes to everybody being unified on where the rollback is going to be, because 26 will be 28, sadly, before we know it. And 27 is going to be here before 28, because I can count that high. I'm not a math guy. And Adair Manor and Rahm and Hatton and all the other guys who are going, wait a second, they're being greenlit to play in this event, but we're being held at arm's length because what? And I'm talking about Westwood, McDowell, and all those other guys, Garcia. David Puig could be on the European Ryder Cup team, but can he be? A question that will hang out there, especially if he starts to win, and that was a big win. Let's say he wins, and again, it's only 26, but 27 is right there. Good story. We'll get to the Australian Open. We'll get to Nelly, who said she didn't win this year. We'll get to her as well. And also the passing of a two-time major champion who at one time was one of the biggest stars in the game. Played in the Skins game, won it a couple times. The passing of Fuzzy Zoeller. My thoughts before we are done on this Monday. Nice to have you with us live on Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92, Sirius XM. A Masters champion, Mike Weir, with me next. Back in this Monday edition of 5 Clubs here on Golf Channel, and of course PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. And this segment is brought to you by Golf Pride. When it comes to having options with what grips you should play. There really is no option. It's Golf Pride. And then when you choose Golf Pride, then you have every option. The best products, the best materials, players at all levels trust Golf Pride more than any grip. Joining me now, Masters champion, and of course he was the captain of the international side of the President's Cup. El Capitan, he's putting the cap back on because for the Skechers World Champions Cup, he will captain that international side. Kind enough to join us from home in Utah is Mike Weir, my friend. Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Gare. Good to be with you, man.
Well, it's good to have you. Thank you for joining me. I mentioned this Skechers World Champions Cup. You guys will be on ESPN. Then you get network coverage the final day on ABC. I know that's great for you guys. One of the guys on your team, Steven Alker, I know you're thrilled to have him. Look, you won the Masters. You had an amazing career on the PGA Tour. This is somebody who, just to give people an idea, for 20 years, over the course of 20 years, he managed to get his card on the PGA Tour 3 times. He missed more cuts than he made. Additionally, he missed 148 cuts on the Korn Ferry Tour. And over the course of those 2+ decades, he accrued just a little bit over $2 million in earnings. I'm not trying to disparage him. What I'm pointing out is since turning 50, he has played so exceptionally well, becoming one of the best players on PGA Tour champions, and he's made just under $13 million in those 4 years. Mike, can you explain Steven Alker to everybody?
Well, what you just said there, it is hard to explain, but when you watch him play, you're kind of blown away that maybe he didn't have the career on the regular tour when you watch him now, because he's really hitting his stride in his 50s. And it just goes to his perseverance and his dedication to his game and his belief in himself and how he's continued to push forward. Steve's got a great all-around game. He hits it plenty far for the Champions Tour. He drives it well. He hits great iron shots. He has a tremendous short game. So, it's a testament to him and his work ethic and his perseverance to continue to, as those lean years were happening in his 30s and 40s, kind of look forward to the Champions Tour and he's really resurrected his career on the Champions Tour. He's played great.
He really has. I had Jim Furyk on last week talking about this event. He's captained the USA team before, and he said the first time he was trying to keep up with everything. And with this format, just to remind people, you've got Scotch sixums, you've got 6 balls, and you have singles. With you, when you were the captain of the President's Cup team, look, the point came at the end, and you hope that point was coming to your side. Here, points are flying all over the place, and he said, you know what, this year, I'll just figure it out at the end. How are you doing it?
That's what Ernie Els told me as well. He's like, just figure it out at the end and just know that, the interesting thing is that, watching it on TV a couple of years ago, how it came down to the very last hole, all those points. So it was a great format that Peter Jacobson and his team came up with. And so it's just, you can have a bad hole and then you're right back in at the next hole and trying to win your point for the team. I think Jim's advice, Ernie's advice is best. Just kind of stick your nose in it every hole and try to win a point for your team every hole. And let's see what happens on Sunday.
Mike, the last event on the PGA Tour schedule, which concluded a little bit over a week ago, young man from Finland won. And when you started to become one of the more reliable players on the PGA Tour, look, the game was global, but it's more global than it's ever been. And you see that with the guys that you captain, certainly represented with your team at the Skechers World Champions Cup as well. What do you think has happened most over the last 20 years to make globalization with quality depth so possible?
Yeah, I think, the game has grown, keeps growing. I think when you have international players like Ernie Els and you have, Adam Scotts and players from different countries around the world. Now you have Hideki Matsuyama winning in Japan. It just inspires a new generation of players to kind of come and follow behind them. I think Henrik Stenson's wins for the Scandinavians and at the British Open a few years back, inspired those guys. So I think that kind of goes along with it. I think, golf's gotten bigger in the last through Tiger and the game the last 20 years, it's gotten bigger. It's become more athletic, so more athletic guys are, I think, getting in the sport, where maybe in the years past they maybe migrate to other sports, in those Scandinavian countries, Canada, migrate towards hockey. But those players are loving golf too now, and I think that speaks to the depth of the game globally.
Mike, when you were captaining that President's Cup team, you know, you mentioned all these parts of the world, and you're taking on a team that's from one country. What's improved in that area as far as narrowing? Look, you have language barriers, plus you have cultural differences. What were some of the things that you tried to do? Look, I'm not saying that at the Skechers event, look, it's about camaraderie and competition, whereas the President's Cup, it's intense competition. What do you think's gotten better in that department as far as the challenges that you faced, that all the captains that obviously will come after you still face to some degree?
Yeah, it's a great point. I think, to your point with the Skechers World Champions, we have some veteran guys you don't have to worry about so much that they've all been part of it. They know what to do. Where the President's Cup, you get some new faces every year. You have some veteran guys that you try to lean on, and like you said, our team culturally you have to try to bring them together. What I tried to do, even through cuisine, I think, having different food for the guys, I think, that's something you can kind of lean on. I think the messaging in our team room, instead of it all being in English, having it in the different, different nationalities up on the wall, and different sayings and different languages. So to make everybody feel like, hey, we're thinking of them. And I think that was the biggest thing. And really trying to get to know the players for the couple of years leading into the President's Cup, visiting with them, talking to their agents, and getting to know them a little bit better, actually setting up some personality profiles to learn a little bit more about them and what makes them tick. So, there's a lot that goes into it when you're the captain, and I tried to do all those things to try to bring our team together. I learned a lot for the couple of years that I was assistant captain with, Nick Price and Ernie and Trev, and try to move that forward, and hopefully that continues to move forward, because it is always a challenge to bring the guys together. Europe kind of has the European tour that they all bond around, and we've kind of struggled to find that, but we've made huge strides in the last 2 years. Best example I can give is after Thursday in Montreal. We're down 0-5, and I know in my day I wouldn't have been able to handle it as well as the players did this year. When I came back from doing some media and press and went back to our team cabin, the guys were having a beer, they were out chipping, they were laughing, they were loose, and I was really blown away of how well they handled that, and that's on them. They really showed me something. I learned something about kind of getting over something quickly, where maybe I would have wallowed in that a little bit more in my day. I was really proud of them, and it showed the next day, and that was something really special.
Mike, you mentioned the hockey background. Famously, for people who don't know, you were wondering as a young teen what choice you should make, and I know that how much you admired Nicholas. You sent him a letter about lefty or righty, and he advised you lefty. But my grander point to the question is, you were an athlete, and I always felt you had a healthy chip. A chip that I think might have been rooted a little bit in hockey, in the sense that, I may be diminutive or smaller, but I'm not backing down from anybody. Was that part of your foundational piece when you made the path in golf, the primary path?
Oh, no doubt about it. I use that. I think, I was, early in my career, I was always counted out. Like you said, diminutive, small, can't hit it far enough, doesn't have the skills. You name it, I heard it. And I always use that as fuel. I use that in team competition when, I was playing these team events, and try to use that as fuel, try to motivate my teammates who I was playing with and the rest of the team and that. And, our team showed a lot of grit. I was really proud of them in Montreal. They, the final score isn't reflective of how well they played and how well they fought. And it's an interesting thing, being on the team. When you're on a team, there's always roles. There's roles on a hockey team of the superstar, the role players, the tough guy, and all that kind of stuff. And as golfers, we're not used to that. We're used to doing our own thing. And when you have to accept a role, maybe playing a lot more than maybe what you thought, and maybe not getting the chance to play as much as you thought, that's tough sometimes. And but the guys handled that well, and tried to get that message across early that, had to be selfless, and they were awesome at that. But yeah, to your point, yeah, I always kind of use that little underdog thing for me.
Yeah, the golf federations around the world that give, grassroots support to kids who want to make the pursuit. You had it. The U.S. has established a U.S. development program. I know one of the primary objectives is that, look, you made your way from Canada to the United States to play collegiate golf. And it's not that they want to shut that all together, but I know that the overwhelming majority, especially for women's programs, are made up of kids from other countries. And I know that the U.S. and the USGA wants to give more opportunities to American kids by creating this program. What did the Canadian Golf Federation give you that was essential for you to be able to say, I'm good enough to play collegiate golf at the highest level?
Yeah, I guess back in my day, you think when I was a junior golfer in the mid '80s, we didn't have the development program that Canada does now. They have a great development program. What I leaned on was, really my head golf professional, Steve Bennett, and kind of getting my name out there and playing some AGGA events so I could get exposure to some college coaches. I happened to play pretty well in a U.S. junior in Colorado with Brendan Little, who caddies for Gary Woodland, Butchie, who caddied for me for a long time. We both played this U.S. junior in Colorado and got recruited. I got recruited by BYU, him, New Mexico State. And, that was kind of the path. And then I really leaned on my college coach to help me find the path. And some former BYU players, Dick Sokol and Jim Nelford and Johnny Miller and guys that I just kind of called them. And when I was around them, asked them lots of questions. So I just had those type of mentors to help me along. I think now Golf Canada has done such a great job with their coaching, their psychologists, their just someone that they can lean on and talk to, and then they have players that are out there on tour that the younger guys can talk to, and they've done a great job with their program.
An event like this, the Skechers World Champions Cup, is great because there's so many major champions, you included, that are participating. End of the year, you get to see guys that people have watched their entire careers. But the PGA Tour champions as a whole, what's your intuition tell you about the next couple of years? What's the most important things for the vitality of this tour to go forward?
Yeah, I think, like you said, the major champions, guys continue to play well. I think, like you said, I think guys of your generation, my generation, grew up watching and watched us guys, and we're still playing at a high level. There's the little carrot out there that hopefully Tiger plays some. That would be wonderful if he gets out there and get his competitive juices going again. And I would love to see that. So there's a lot of positivity around the Champions Tour. I think anybody who goes out and watches sees a really high standard. Our interactions with the pro-ams are wonderful, and I think it keeps continuing to grow, and the standard continues to be really high. It's really high quality golf. We might not be as powerful as the younger guys on the tour and hit it as far, but the skills are there still. So, and the work ethic is still there by everyone. So, I think the sky's the limit for the Champions Tour. I think it's really going to continue to grow and evolve and get better.
All right, let's get Mike Weir out of here. 5 quick questions to go. Here we go. The hockey arena in the States, you've not attended a game at, but you want to. Where is it?
Madison Square Garden.
You haven't been to the Garden for a Ranger game?
No, I haven't. I was at home in Utah last week. We played the Rangers here, but I have not been to MSG. That's where I want to go. Okay,
this is an appropriate question considering the replica trophy over your right shoulder, the famous image of the 18T over your left shoulder. The number of days for the balance of 2003 into 2004, you wore the green jacket either around the house, to a dinner party, to Starbucks, to take out the garbage. How many days over the course of that year was that jacket over your shoulders?
Not as much as you'd think. I give it a week. I give it a week. There's probably 7 or 8 days that I wore it around. Not a full week in time, but like 7 or 8 days that I had it out.
That's it?
That's it. Yeah, I just kind of had it in the corner. Had it, showed people a lot, but didn't have it on a ton. I don't know why. I'm not sure why, but that's it.
Well, I think that is reflective of you. You're just chill. You're understated. I will say, I thought when you went and dropped the puck right after winning the Masters, that was one of the best things I've ever seen. We talk about golf getting into other spaces. Had you ever felt anything like that in terms of walking onto the ice with that jacket on, knowing how much Canada loves the game and how much you love hockey? What was that like?
Yeah, it was really special. It was so organic. We had this deal right after the Masters, and that I was back in Canada the day after for a corporate thing I had. And, we went to the game. We were in the box with one of my sponsors, and a representative from the Leafs said, "Hey, Mike, would you mind dropping the puck tonight?" And I just wanted to spend time with my friends, have a few beers, and just enjoy the game. And they kind of conned me into it. They were just like, "Mike, you got to do this." And I said, "Okay, I'll go do it." And then I'm so glad I did, because it was one of the most memorable things that I still get chills thinking about it. Being a hockey fan, to go down there on the ice with those guys. And you were asking, talking earlier about choosing between sports. I learned quickly when I went down the ice and dropping the puck between Matt Sundin and I think it was, I forget the captain of the Philadelphia Flyers. They were both about 6'5", maybe 6'7" or 6'8" on skates. And I thought, I made a good decision.
Yeah, 6'5" on skates with bad intentions to boot. All right, all these major champions in the Skechers World Champions Cup, these guys don't count. Who do you think was the most underrated player who was not of your profile in your prime? Who was like a guy who went, this guy will not go away? Who was it?
Major champion?
No, somebody who wasn't a major champion, somebody who just thought, had a lot of guts, had a lot of chops, who was underrated.
Underrated, maybe. That's in the Champions Cup, I would say. Boy. Well, I think I'm going to say a major champion, probably Angel Cabrera.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of somebody else that maybe is not, but Angel Cabrera, I think when he kind of got the bit in his teeth and got there, he was tough. And I think because he's such a natural player, he's not in his head. He just gets up there and smashes that thing down there, not overthinking it, and probably the opposite of me. And so I admired that, and I think he was tough in the clutch.
Yeah, I mean, his tee shot, final round of the U.S. Open 2007. I mean, and he tore that tee out of the ground. Absolutely. All right, last two. This is couples related. When you have not made plans to have dinner, and all of a sudden it's about dinner time, what is y'all's go-to fallback meal? Could be Uber Eats, delivery, could be running somewhere. What is y'all's fallback go-to meal?
Got three of them. I'm going to go off the top. So usually falls on me. Michelle's a great cook, but tacos, burger night, or probably our main go-to is a pasta with shredded chicken. We do garlic bread, maybe a little salad, but usually when Michelle and I are sitting around, what are we going to do tonight? It's like pasta comes out, we'll start boiling the water.
There you go. All right, last one. When you and Michelle go to the movies, do you remember the last time the two of you went to a movie in a theater? What movie was it?
Boy, I think last movie we went to see. Well, actually, she went to watch that new Wicked movie with her girlfriends the other day, and she said, "Do you remember last time we went to see the first Wicked?" And she said she was crying over a scene. She looked over, and I was asleep. So I think that was probably the last one, Wicked #1.
All right, very good. Listen, thank you for making the time. Again, the Skechers World Champions Cup. Mike will captain the international side. 3 teams, balls everywhere, points on every single hole. It's good to see your face. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.
You bet. Mike Weir, Masters champion. We continue here. It's a Monday edition of 5 Clubs Golf Channel, PGA Tour Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 92. We're back right after this. Back in, live on this Monday. It is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel, PGA Tour Radio, Sirius XM's Channel 92. This segment brought to you by Century Insurance. They invest in golf in great ways, and they want to invest in your business handling all of your business insurance needs. They want to be right by you as they are with us and so many other great partners. It is Century Insurance. Speaking of right by somebody, Nelly Corda announced via her social media platform that she is off the market. How about that? And she is marrying a young man. I'm unfamiliar with him. He's not in the golf space. He's an engineer. He's an athlete. Played wide receiver at Bryant College. Casey Gunderson. So the two-time major champion, and her sister, Jessica, posted that line. She's off the market. So Casey Gunderson, I don't want to be disrespectful, but did he win the Grand Slam? Did he? I mean, and I will say this about the Corda family. Genetically, they are predisposed to be superior athletes. From Peter Corda, who's a Grand Slam tennis champion, to Sebastian, Nelly and Jessica's brother, who's a world-class tennis player, not to mention Jessica and Nelly. And now Casey Gunderson, wide receiver from Bryant University, will be added to the fold of the Corda clan. Congratulations to Nelly. She was the first guest on this program to launch 2025. And we're going to put a bow on 2025 with a pretty good guest on our last show, which will be December 17th. So 3 weeks for us until the finish line in 2025. And that gets me to a great event that's happening this week. And if you look at the history of the Australian Open, starting in 1904, and you look at the roll call of champions from Sarazen to Gary Player won it 7 times, Greg Norman won it 5 times, Arnold Palmer in that heartbreaking year of 1966, after he gave up that big lead on the final 9 holes of the Olympic Club. What did he do at the end of the year? He got to Australia and he won the Australian Open. And there was a time that even Nicklaus said, hey, this is like the 5th major, great rota. And in particular, when it's at Royal Melbourne, and it's not like the rest of the golf courses in the rotation are not great, but Royal Melbourne is, as good as it gets, really. And Jack Nicklaus won it, as I said, 6 times. And one of the great stories that I was ever told by the man himself, but he didn't really tell the story. He was adding just a little bit of color to that story, told to me and Matt Janelle and Adam Schupak at the Legends of Golf when it was held out there at Top of the Rock outside of Branson, Missouri. There is Ben Crenshaw telling the story of the 1978 Australian Open, but it wasn't really so much about how Jack won the event. It was how, before the event even began, Jack landed a 1,358-pound black marlin off the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. And it took him 6 hours to land this fish. And when he got back to the house that he was staying at, he said to himself, I'm so sore, I don't know if I'm going to be able to play golf. He then proceeded to play like hours of tennis the next day and the next day. And then he went out, he won his 6th by 6. And to hear Ben Crenshaw tell that story with the wonder in his eyes, telling it to the man who performed all these amazing feats of strength, Jack Nicklaus, was delightful. And it tickled all of us to hear. But the best part was Ben saying, he got this fish in the boat and it took 6 hours and he thought he wasn't even going to be able to play golf. And he won the event by 6 shots. You know what Jack said? That's right. Said it in a way that reminded me of when Putty on Seinfeld would go, yeah, that's right. Like when he said, I'm a face painter, and you'd go, yeah, that's right. Jack, the little color being added to the story told by Ben Crenshaw. And let me say this about Rory, who's in the field. He's won the event before. He did it in 2013. That was a year in which it was sandwiched between, him winning the PGA in 2012, and then he won 2 majors in 2014. But if you ask players about winning events, particular events, and how much they can mean to them, not only in that moment, but also in the grand scheme of things, but also what it could mean about being the impetus for things in the immediate future. Jordan Spieth won the Australian Open. He's won it twice. He won it in 2014, and oh, by the way, he came back after winning the Australian Open, and then he lapped the field at Isleworth, that one-off year where they played the Hero World Challenge. More on that event tomorrow. Tiger's event being held this week. And he said, and I give credit to my colleague Damon Hack, who said, in that moment, this is going to mean a hell of a lot to him as he goes into 2015. Like, meaning this is going to be a big push. And of course, what did he do in 2015? Won 2 majors, won 5 times, was on the doorstep at the Open Championship, but he wrapped in that bomb on 16 at the Old Course, and you're going, oh my gosh, this is really going down. And then he bogeyed 17, he didn't make 3 on 18. But the point is, the Australian Open, particularly at Royal Melbourne, and consider this, if Rory puts a bow on his competitive year, while Scotty was a 2-time major champion with 6 wins, Rory would have won at Pebble Beach. He would have won the Players. He would have completed the career Grand Slam, of course, at Augusta National, Alistair McKenzie, like Royal Melbourne. He would have won the Irish Open, which is near and dear and a tender thing when it comes to tugging at the heartstrings. He was the centerpiece of the marker he laid down in Rome, saying we're going to Bethpage and we're winning the Ryder Cup on the road. And oh, by the way, they did it. It is hard for me to fathom. In the Australian Open at Royal Melbourne, and Rory has become very particular and very in tune with design and design principles, and he's got an affinity for Andy Johnson and Friday golf, but he himself has got his eyes wide open about what's special. If he wins this event, I find it hard to believe that there's ever going to be anything else that he does, not that winning a 6th major or a 7th, but I'm talking the totality of the year. There will be nothing sweeter than 25 for Rory. All right, we take a break. We come back. Some thoughts on the passing of a 2-time major champion, Fuzzy Zoeller. It's a Monday edition of 5 Club's Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio, Sirius XM's Channel 92. I'm back right after this. Back in, a couple minutes left on this Monday edition of 5 Clubs here on Golf Channel and also PGA Tour Radio, Sirius XM's Channel 92. This segment brought to you by Peter Millar. With all the things that you're thinking of getting the people in your life who love Peter Millar, the answer is at petermillar.com. For all your apparel needs, they are the premier lifestyle brand. On Thanksgiving, Fuzzy Zoeller passed away at the age of 74. And for those people a little bit younger who may just look at resume and say, wow, he won the Masters, he won a U.S. Open. Fuzzy Zoeller, for a pretty good while, was one of the biggest stars in men's professional golf. And when he won the Masters in 1979, he became the second, in a lot of people's minds, really the first to be a first-time winner of the Masters, a first-time starter. Sarazen being the other, but really in 1935, so many of the men playing in 1935, they were all first-timers. That was the second year of the event. Fuzzy Zoeller not only won that event, but he went on to win the 1984 U.S. Open at famed Winged Foot as well. He won 10 times on the PGA Tour. He was the recipient of the Bob Jones Award in 1985, the year after he won the USGA's biggest championship, that aforementioned U.S. Open. But a lot of people, when they read or try to learn about Fuzzy Zoeller, they keep getting or finding this chapter dated from April of 1997, well past his prime to some degree, although Fuzzy Zoeller finished 3rd in the Open Championship in 1994. And he also finished 2nd at the PGA. He won 2 majors, 2nd in a 3rd, and 4th in the final one. Those comments made as Tiger Woods was polishing off his historic first Masters title in April of 1997 were regrettable, to say the least. In a lot of people's minds, there was an altering of Fuzzy Zoeller from that day forward. And it's something that only he really knows. Did he speak about it to some degree? Yes. But he also had friends who were intensely loyal to him. And it seemed as if that there was a relationship, or there was some type of kinship to a degree between Tiger and Fuzzy Zoeller. But for Fuzzy Zoeller, if you look back at a time when you're looking at, okay, he's a needle mover and he's a needle mover, and I'm talking about in the prime of somebody's career, And not only did Fuzzy win the Masters, and he do it by leaping up in the air on that 11th green after beating Watson and Ed Snead in that kind of surprising playoff, because Ed Snead bogeyed the last couple of holes, last 3 for that matter. But in 1984, when Greg Norman was in front of him, finishing off on the 18th hole, and Greg hit a foul ball very eerily reminiscent of one he would hit 2 years later on the 18th hole at Augusta National, high and right. He made a par that Fuzzy assumed was birdie. And what did he do back in the fairway? He waved a white towel. One of the great spontaneous, really sportsmanlike gestures that really anybody had seen. Of course, he beat Greg the following day in that playoff to win his second major. 74 years of age, a heck of a playing career, and also that one chapter that will always be there. Fuzzy Zoeller gone at the age of 74. Tomorrow here on Morning Drive, Darren Clark will join me, as well as Tom Coyne, the overseer of the Broken T Society. Have a great Monday, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow with Darren Clark and Tom Coyne.